Пані та панове, ми починаємо. Президент
Ladies
України
and gentlemen,
Володимир
we
Зеленський.
shall start. The President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky.
Отже, третя річниця
So,
повномасштабного
the
вторгнення.
third anniversary of the full-scale invasion as we see it now. So how do we see this, Ukraine at the third anniversary? Good afternoon and welcome everyone. First of all, I'd like to extend words of gratitude for this meeting, and I'd like to extend words of gratitude for you being with us over this period of time. Ukraine is not forgotten. And I'm very grateful to you for this. The attention is maintained, the focus is maintained. This helps to reinforce this support around our security, the focus around this unfair war of Russia against our country, against Ukrainians. I thank you for this. I'd like to extend words of gratitude to our soldiers, strong and close ones, and I'd like to extend words of gratitude to their relatives, to our nation, and to our partners for these 3 years. That's crucially important. Tomorrow, we will have some physical presence of our partners. We'll have a very important meeting, summit, a turning point, I would say. We will have 13 leaders offline, and I think 24 leaders will be joining us online. We will have the leadership of the European Union here in Kyiv. Ursula von der Leyen will be here, and all the commissioners of the European Union, 24 commissioners, will be arriving here. The Prime Minister will be holding this session. We'll have members of European Parliament. We'll have many delegations. Chairman of the Verkhovna Rada will be having a number of meetings. I will have a meeting with the leaders of the country. We'll have a special platform, Ukraine, Nordic, Baltic countries. So the leaders of the Northern European countries will be here. This is a very strong partners to Ukraine. Now, that is about tomorrow. I believe there will be several formats relating to Ukraine's technologies. This is our priority today, and this is where we are further ahead of many Russians, that is, in technologies, in drones, in radio electronic warfare, so several formats will be dedicated to that as well. So I guess that's how it's going to be, and I believe we'll be discussing our strategy, but not for the upcoming years, but for the upcoming weeks. And we'll be talking about the formats of the security guarantees for Ukraine, primarily from Europe. Definitely, we would need the United States for this. And I believe that tomorrow I will suggest for us to spend the nearest days to have a meeting in one of the capitals, so that we would be able to understand the format for the security guarantees for Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Good evening. Glory to heroes. So in continuation of the Ukrainian question, I can see the TV channel Euronews. If you have any follow-up questions, please. Thank you. I will ask the question in Ukrainian. I would like to ask the question with regards to the expectations out of the visit of the representatives of the European Commission and the representatives of the Baltic countries. What do you expect? Any documents, any decisions to be made or signed or announced in Ukraine? Well, I don't want to provide any spoilers with regards to tomorrow's situation. There's some strong decisions. The Prime Minister and the Chairman of the Verkhovna Rada will have their own meetings. I will concentrate on the support package. There's some very specific aspects, amounts of money, weapons, and sanctions against Russia.
ABC.
Now, ABC, please.
wait for your mic, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. 30 years ago, Ukraine gave away the world's third largest nuclear arsenal in exchange for guarantees of security, sovereignty, territorial integrity. But the Budapest Memorandum turned out to be fairly worthless. What do you need from Donald Trump to end the war and ensure that there isn't a third Russian invasion? And have you invited President Trump to Kyiv? And a second question, if I may. You're under pressure from Moscow to step aside and Washington to hold elections. Would you be willing to give up the presidency if it meant peace for Ukraine? Thank you.
Так, з останнього. Якщо мир для України, якщо вам дуже потрібно, щоб я залишив свій пост.
If you really need for me to relieve my post, then I'm ready for the sake of the peace in Ukraine. And I can replace that to NATO if there is any, more to say on that. I'm focusing on Ukraine's security today, not in 20 years, and I'm not going to stay in power for decades. So that is my focus, that is my dream. As for the security guarantees, if we already started with NATO, I will continue with NATO. Look, I believe that NATO is the cheapest option, and that is true. And I'm sorry for reiterating this, because in any case, it doesn't matter who wants that or not, who support this idea or not, this topic is on the table, alongside the security guarantees. I don't know what would be the end of the negotiations in any format, in any case, but this matter will be on the table, and this will be discussed with the partners. But it's important that we all understand that this is not the negotiation table where Ukraine is invited to. This is our table of negotiation. This is important because we have a war in Ukraine. This is our table. This is we inviting our European leaders because the war is in Ukraine and we are an integral part of this continent, the European continent, the future European Union. So Europe should be at this negotiating table. So it would be fair for Europe to be represented in wider understanding, not just the European Union itself, because this is the Europe. For example, the UK, our strong partners, how can we do that without them? I would believe it would be unfair. And definitely the United States, because this is our major supporter who provides donations to Ukraine. And should you compare that with any of the European countries, and we have friendly relations with Japan as well, and with other countries, but the United States surely gave more than any other country. Should we compare that with the EU? Well, that would be imbalance. And we definitely want to put an end to the war, and the partners are willing to have Russia at that table. So this is how we look at this table of negotiations. Ukraine as a part of Europe, United States, and Russia. This is how it looks like. What would I like to have from Donald Trump? I think, should we believe to what he is saying, that he wants to have the same, to finish the war as soon as possible. I truly believe that he wants and he can help us to put an end to this war. But peace out of strengths, that is to direct the strengths towards Russia. I think this is the true meaning of this peace through force. We are partners. I would really like him to be on our side. So that wouldn't be as a mediation, because I think that is not enough. That the security guarantees from the United States, we are grateful for the bipartisan support. I am grateful to the two administrations because the war is taking place during the tenure of two administrations, and I'm grateful for the support which is coming to us. This is very important. Currently, we are receiving this support based on the previous decisions of the U.S. Congress. That's due to the deceleration of certain processes. This is not new, so I'm not going to stop on that. You know that there's something on the way, but still 100 billion US dollars, not 500, not 350, not 700, but 100 billion US dollars. That is something that Ukraine has received, and we are extremely grateful for that. Currently, we're talking about 320 from total. That is United States, Europe, and Ukraine. There's 15 coming from Japan and 100 from United States. So this is the economy of this tragedy. And what I really like from Trump is the understanding of one another, to be heard and to hear about the security guarantees that Ukraine needs. This was partially mentioned in the Ukraine victory plan, so that Ukraine would have a strong position at the negotiation table. The security guarantees from Trump is something that we really need. I would like to talk with him about the contingent, the structure of the presence of the contingent after the end of the hold phase. We kind of understand this. We're ready to discuss that with our counterparts from the European Union and Europe to the wider extent, and with the President of the United States. The security guarantees could be in the form of economic agreements, and there is a lot about that in the media, but not just the economic agreements, but the economic agreement between our countries as a part of the security guarantees. So there should be something that we're still lacking in this economic agreement, that is the security guarantees from the United States. When I have invited President Trump, I'm always inviting in any of the contexts. I really want him to be in Ukraine. You know that General Kellogg, the Secretary of Treasury of the United States, came to Ukraine, and we are hosting many of the senators and congressmen. I really like him to come, but so far we haven't managed at this point, but it's either him or I would be coming to Washington. That would be fruitful in any case. And SLM, STBN, там само, please.
Вітаю, пане президенте. Мене звати Сергій Єременко.
I'm Sergei Yeremenko, STB, TV channel. My question to you, Mr. President, is as follows. Can you explain it to yourself how the current world has ultimately found itself in a situation when there are tariffs and threats to Canada, Denmark, then when there are overwhelming agreements suggested to Ukraine, and there are very warm meetings in Riyadh with those who only recently threatened to turn the U.S. into nuclear ash. And also, if you could please disclose the idea on rare earth minerals. I think someone did already disclose the agreement details. There are different options of the agreement, different formats. If you want, I can tell you more. Let us finish with the agreement, and then I will speak about our partners, Canada, Denmark, and so on. No guarantee I know everything, but maybe I do know something. Now, when it comes to the agreement, it all had started with our victory plan. We considered that Russia was taking our territories, and we had to protect them from the invading forces of the Russian Federation, also from the allies from the North Korea, Iran, and so on. I think you do know everything of this. And the agreement is everything about protecting it. And from here, the need for us to have security guarantees. Ukraine says, okay, give us security guarantees. This is part and parcel of this agreement. Without that, we would not agree. What we agree for, I say, yes, let's talk. Let's talk about access rights, about subsoil resources, crude, gas. You have priority number one please do everything to stop the enemy and to restore justice for us. Please end this war. Force Putin. Roughly, this is the story. Then we had a package to sustain the enemy, the weapons supply package. We needed, actually, it was a comprehensive proposal because we needed security guarantees. We wanted to strengthen the Ukrainian army. We wanted to equip our military. Everything like that was necessary. Anti-air defense and to defend the skies over Ukraine. Now, going to this part, we get the first agreement with no security guarantees there, no scandal, no fuss about it. Roughly, it said, like, let's split it into 50-50 ownership. I said, I'm not going to sign it, and I'm not going to let my ministers do it. We had meetings with the Minister of Finance, Minister and other. It was not possible. We could not just split 50-50 without understanding of what to expect further on. And the question would be, like, potentially, let's split 50-50, including the occupied territories. We will help them recover these territories. It could make for some substantial talk. But again, from the outset, it wasn't clear, this agreement. We had different meetings. And then I said it should look as this. Another story, there was another shape of this agreement with 500 billion mentioned there. Then it became clear about the messages from the United States of America. It was about debt. It was for Ukraine to recognize the debt. The funds, and the money from extraction of resources go to a fund. And the fund is 100% in ownership of the U.S. So this doesn't say about co-investment. It's not about 500 billion worth of investment. If this money go to the fund and nothing comes from abroad to the fund, this means that we are repaying the debt. Now, let's be clear about the figure itself. I do know it was 100. This is for a fact. I'm not going to recognize 500. Whoever says about it, with all due respect, with all respect to partners, I'm very solid on that, because this is the real situation, and we are completely right. Actually, I wouldn't be ready to agree to 100 billion. Why? Because we should not recognize grants as debts, like it or not. But I had agreed it with Biden, with the U.S. Congress, and I'm thankful to the Congress. In presence of two parties, there was support via grants, and grants make no debt, so we should not be returning this debt. Maybe some would say this is not just, but that had been the earlier agreement. It had been about grant money, so it's not a matter of a figure. It's a matter of us not recognizing as a debt. If the condition to do is that the United States, as our strategic partner, says, yes, we will give you assistance, but you will have to repay it with certain markup for the U.S. It's not about grant, it's about a new agreement. This is what I said. I'm ready for a dialogue like that. I'm sure it will result positive. Again, regardless of whether we like it or not, because we need your assistance. So the question is, how much of assistance do you provide? 10, 20, 30 billion weapons? Let's have a detailed substantial discussion. I will be grateful to you for that. Let us come to terms about price for that assistance. Another thing I could not agree for, because I could not understand the logic. Or I can rather tell you my understanding of the logic, and I'm ready to discuss it with President Trump. I send this information to it. I have no emotions about it. I'm ready to talk about pragmatic agreement. They want it. I'm ready to talk pragmatically. There's one thing, in my life, I had several serious agreements. I don't know what the agreements are. I don't know how to sign an agreement with serious guys. You have to do it so as to remain friends and partners, and with a clear understanding of how you are going to ultimately break even. Not through having some beef with them, not through courts, when we fall away from our relations. It's like normal business has been done. There's a 1-to-2 ratio there. And I did underline it in red for lawyers to have a look, because for each dollar of U.S. assistance, Ukraine effectively would have to return 2. That was there. So a loan facility at 100% interest rate. So for every dollar I get as a loan, I will have to pay 1 to repay the body of the loan and 1 to the fund. And it was said that 100% the fund will be registered with the U.S., with all the rights. So if the United States, our friendly partners, suggest an assistance via Congress, an assistance of $500 billion, and we will have to pay at double the rate, this will mean that we will have to repay the loan at 100%. From here, my question. So, yes, I will have to repay 50, then 50 on top of it. So 100 billion, say. So maybe we have to agree to it, but I have a question, a logical one, and no one seems to be able to answer me this question. When the United States of America sell their weapons to Israel, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, do they get 100% markup? Just a normal thing. I just want a dialogue with President Trump. I think I'm just in my want of a dialogue. I'm not signing something that will have to be repaid by generations and generations of the Ukrainians. Now, when it as regards Canada and Denmark, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be here with visits here tomorrow. He is chairing the G7 at the moment, so he will tell me what's happening in the relationship with the U.S. I've been in close contact with Matt Frederiksen, Prime Minister of Denmark. We are good friends for quite some time, and I'm very much sure that the U.S. should not lose neither the Canadian nor Danish partners. I think that it is increasingly important for them to not engage in clearing Russians of their political isolation. It's very important for every of our countries, the United States, Canada, Denmark, and Ukraine. We still have to have respect towards each other's people. To our interest, we need to treat each other equally. What's complex with the Russians? There are bilateral relations of them with the United States of America. It may not be ended or agreed upon without us, on terms and conditions unbeknownst to us. I think we are fully entitled to this. By the way, our group. I think we have all of the ministers, representatives of our companies, the head of my office. They are currently having a call with Waltz and his team. They're talking about the agreement. So there are no more billions, no more interest rates. So we move further. It's okay, I think. Things go.
Далі, будь ласка, Нью-Йорк.
Yes. Now, please, New York Post. Caitlin, I do know of you being here.
І якщо можна,
And if possible,
ганчірку сюди.
and someone to clear this little mess here.
Дякую. Добрий день.
Доброго дня.
That's the extent of my Ukrainian. I'd like to ask how this past few weeks of tensions with the U.S. and the Trump administration have been, and how General Kellogg's visit this past week have affected U.S. relations with Ukraine. Also, as we're dealing with the new administration, it's a different way of negotiating. Can we look at a mineral deal with the United States as a security guarantee in and of itself, because it would give President Trump something to protect here in Ukraine? Thank you.
Так, я розумію. Давайте, щоб передусім я хочу, щоб у нас
Yeah, I do
була
understand.
угода, тим більше,
First of all, I
що
do
це
want us to have agreements. This is actually a memorandum based on which some serious agreements may come with more details regarding the fund, the future, if we are partners in it. And these are all the right and correct steps into the future. Such funds with correct details, with correct existence and circumstances, I do know of them. They do exist in the Middle East, with the U.S. and the other countries in the Middle East and elsewhere. And the funds generally tend to operate better than the government, because the government may have 100%, 50% in Arabian countries. It can be like, it started with 50, then went up to 75. Europeans may find it different. But these funds operate faster. They have less red tape. So if we are going to move in the right way, with due respect, with equal treatment of each other, if we will keep it in our hands, then we will be able to do it. Now, about the progress, in my view, I do know that the United States of America consider this agreement a part of the security guarantees. I would really love to know that, but it should be written in there. It should be written that these are the security guarantees. It's not about our understanding of it as such. It would be nice, but not enough, nearly not enough. Because of that, it's very important to have it in practical dimension. Now, we heard messages from colleagues when the Treasury Secretary from the U.S. was here, when we had meetings with Vice President, with Rubio and others. There's a logic in the U.S. And they're completely entitled to have it. When we enter such things, it creates kind of security guarantees, because it will be our business, our companies, and Russians will not venture in there. Would have been nice, but 20-something companies from the U.S. are currently operating on the temporarily occupied territories. That was my response. We had American businesses operating here before the war, and there are those companies. I'm thankful to them. Some of them are no longer here, but some are still here. And the offices, they used to be on our territory. Now they're on the territory temporarily occupied by Russians. To say that there is no 100% guarantee that Russians will never venture the territory that they've never visited before. And I heard that signal from the Defense Secretary of the U.S. Yes, all the proposals have to be on the table. They have to be discussed with partners. When the Defense Secretary said,
Що важливо? І так, окей. Про НАТО ми вже поговорили. Так.
Okay, we had a word about NATO. We will talk more on that. Now, when it comes to boots on the ground, let's have it very clear. My logic then was, if you think that the economic agreement is a part of security guarantees, then why would you not, well, when there are interests from your businesses there, then why would you not agree to boots on the ground? It would sound logical. In my view, it would sound logical. That was just the idea I floated to the U.S. We are yet to receive their answer. So I think that the example of U.S. companies that throughout this war have suffered to a certain extent. You know, whenever Putin wants to relaunch aggression, this won't stop. Nothing will stop him. Not because disrespect of the words by President Trump. You know, he is not forever. And we need this peace for many, many years to come. And it would make it easier for us if Trump would have squeezed that to see that no Russian advance will be during the tenure of Trump. What if it repeats itself in 10 years? We need to think about it already today. We need to end this war, and we need to sort out all of the problems without leaving them for the future.
Так, колеги, а скажіть, у
Now,
кого є
dear
довге
colleagues,
запитання?
who has a long question?
Ну, давайте ЛБЮА хай.
Okay, let it be LBUA. Yes, a long question, enough to clear everything here.
Не поспішайте.
So don't be fast. I'll just, I'll wait. I'll wait for that. So, Mr. President, kind of in continuation of this topic around the agreement, I can hear you. Okay, so do we have an option not to sign? If, in the process of negotiation, the U.S. side won't be listening to our ideas around supporting or ensuring the security guarantees, so can we decide not to sign this agreement? What would be the outcomes, should we say so? And do we understand that any other support or any support would be stopped in case of there will be no signature? And then, according to the U.S. mass media, the U.S. insists on agreement and not the memorandum. In this case, it means that it should be ratified by the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, and definitely it won't be easy, particularly when some of the politicians will hear about the elections in a certain period of time. So surely they will try to play with that. And how do we deal with that? And the last but not the least, who's going to sign that on behalf of Ukraine? Okay, that contained a lot of questions indeed over a long period of time. So first of all, these strategic partners should be willing to sign an agreement. The United States would need to see that they're not simply giving money, and Ukraine, that they are receiving money and developing the economy. So the agreement between the partners, but it had to be a win-win agreement without any scandals, so that it would be advantages to the U.S. business and to Ukraine. I believe this is the agreement that should be signed, that it would be about the protection and, get a benefit out of the partnership relationship. Because if there's no benefit, no pleasure, then it's not about partnership. Then what would happen to the support? We do have the support, although this is a previously arranged support, the support we've arranged during the previous times. This is the support from the U.S. Congress, but still there is this bipartisan support of the Republicans and Democrats. So I'm happy that it's not stopped, but it's being decelerated. So we can still receive some support. There's $15 billion they're still on the way because they've been voted for, but that could be in terms of weapons, in terms of other technical ways and technical means. So nothing is stopped, but nothing new is being voted for. So this is the current standpoint, current position. And for something new to appear, well, that's my kind of logic of understanding behind this agreement. And for something new to arrive, we would need to understand how you're going to give away or repay something new. So that's my kind of response to the old debts, if this is something about the new. And we are ready to discuss a format. What are we going to receive and how we are going to repay that? We are ready to discuss that in this agreement. As for the format of this agreement, truly, if this is an agreement that there's no figures, like specific figures, then I don't think that we would need the ratification of this agreement by the Verkhovna Rada, even though I don't have anything against that. So when we had a meeting with J.D. Vance in Munich, and we said that if you want to see any figures or interest rates or percentages, then we would need to take a look at our legislation, but we believe that we would need that to be ratified by the Parliament of Ukraine so we can sign, and later on this would be ratified. So the ministers could sign and then it would be ratified. And we would really like to have a meeting with President Trump to put an end to that agreement. The ministers would sign, the Parliament would ratify that, and everyone would be happy. But it's kind of, you need to kind of approach one another, towards the common happiness. When only one remain happy out of two, that's not a happy family. So, and the question whether the parliamentarians will try to play with that, well, let them play. I mean, this is a serious thing. This is not a toy. We have a war. We need a partnership. We need support. But once again, without losing the dignity or independence. And of course, we don't want to be left without some piece of clothing. And then the CDF from Germany.
Katrin Eigendorf from ZDF German television. Mr. President, in Munich you pointed out very strongly that's now the time of Europeans to stand up and get their fate in their own hands. Do you have a strategy to unite the Europeans at the side of Ukraine?
I believe that Europe has some weaknesses. I mean, the European security. This is not related to one country. All those weaknesses Ukraine had, because of the war, we did a lot of things. We've reinforced our production, we've reinforced our armed forces, because of the tragedy, that's right. Because of the tragedy of the war, we've done this. All Europeans know all the details, all the money, and they would need to invest some resources into the defense capacity of their own countries, because you should only count on yourself. And I offer a kind of a combining platform, and Ukraine would be as the first step towards the unifying armed forces of Europe. And I would say that this is not an experiment and a pilot, but a pilot thing. We could have this experiment in Ukraine. We'll be all working together. We'll get acknowledged with the technologies, with the drones. We'll teach how to conduct land operations, how to counter an advanced enemy who's using a lot of technologies. I believe all of that would be useful for the safety and security. I mean, God bless, there would be no war, but that would be safety and security for everyone. I believe we are the kind of true example. Now there is this true desire to offer security guarantees to Ukraine to put an end to the hot phase of the war. And we could use this as an example to build out armed forces, even if there is no legal model to support that. But on the basis of the contingent, that is something that could be built. And I think everyone will have to increase the defense capacity of their own country, or there could be their allied forces, but that's a separate point to be mentioned. Now, Biguzinfo, please.
Greetings,
Mr. President. My name is Ruxelana from Biguzinfo. The Ukraine Constitution has an article saying that Ukraine owns its minerals and the state uses its own minerals for its sake, but during your tenure on the position of the president, we had business entrepreneurs using those minerals for their own interests. Well, and now we have this moment when you as the president and we as the state, we are making a decision to work on the agreement with the United States with regards to the right to use those mineral resources we have on our territory. So are you, or just those authorities, would you be reviewing those licenses granted to entrepreneurs or businessmen over those previous years? If that licensing would be reviewed, then how and when? Thank you for this question. There's different formats. There's multi-year formats. I don't remember the previous cases because there weren't a lot licensees during the war. There's a lot of them in Ukraine on the overall. The whole situation will help us in any case. I mean, the whole situation around this matter. Because first of all of our services, all of our agencies who never dealt with such a serious legal disputes or debates will make a true audit. And this is already happening because, as you know, the development we had in 1946 and or later on in the 1980s with regards to a variety of resources. I'm not talking about the oil drills or oil wells or gas wells, but it's clear that the most recent surveys, well, they were conducted almost 90 years ago. So that allows us to clear everything so that we want to understand what do we have, who owns that, and what is the cost of all that. Now there will be respective decisions made whether there is a legal decisions being made with regards to licenses, whether the licenses are being granted and the business are working on them or not. In case of the licenses being granted but no work has been done, then that could be revoked, but that will be working on that. I think the government officials will be the one suggesting the format. Then Corriere della Sera and Fox News. That's in the same spot over here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Lorenzo Cremonesi from Corriere della Sera. Sir, you, on different occasions, even lately, you say clearly, we will lose the war without America. President Trump recently said about you terrible things. You are responsible of the war. You are a dictator. So first question is why? You think it's only a tactic? You see this as a strategy, the way that then he will change? Because you are still talking about American as a partner, not as enemy, and even if he treats you like his enemy, personally. And this is a second question. Can Europe really replace America? Look at Miss Meloni. She was here last year with you, our prime minister, and she's not coming, and she's a kind of ambiguous today. So what do you think? Thank you.
Ну, тут немає можливості
Well, here
для емоцій.
there's no place for emotions.
Маю прагматичний підхід
And because of that, I have a pragmatic approach towards our relationships with the current administration. I will continue like that.
Я би не назвав ці слова в мою адресу від
Surely I would not call the words Trump said towards me as a compliment. I don't understand that. But why would I become offended? A dictator would have become offended by being called a dictator. I'm not. So, well, what else can you... I think we'll have to live somehow with the United States of America. We won't be dictators, for sure. Not interesting at all. You know, I'm a legally elected president, not because of some force, not because I took power. 73% voted for me. And MPs also cannot be nominated. They were elected by the people of Ukraine. So after the martial law is over, people will make the choice. I'm not going to dwell in power for decades. But we won't let Putin be in power over the territories of Ukraine. That's it. This is why we are fighting. The words, you know, they fly in the wind. Maybe we will hear something good in my address. You know, I'm really partial about what Ukrainians say about me, think about me. Same about President Trump. I think he's very much, you know, into what Americans have to say about. This is what important. Now, Meloni, I have very nice relationships with Meloni. Very nice. I think she's on a visit somewhere to the Middle East. She said that she would love to go, but, well, she will be here online tomorrow. We'll have a chance to talk.
Там само, Fox News, будь ласка.
Yeah, and over there, Fox News.
Alex Hogan, Fox News. Mr. President, thank you for speaking with us. So I have a question regarding the minerals deal. You've mentioned which parts of the deal that Ukraine would not accept, that you would like to see U.S. security guarantees in it. What else does Ukraine need to see in order to accept this deal? And a second question, if I may. The White House this weekend said that President Trump is confident that he could also reach a deal with Russia to end the war by the end of this week. And I'm curious what your reaction is to that.
Цього тижня завершити цю війну.
To end this war this week, it won't happen. It is not possible with guarantees for Ukraine.
Принаймні я
At the very least, I frankly
можна це зробити.
do not know how this can be done without meetings with us. Now, as regards the agreement, there could and should not be any sort of format where we are debtors, in debt for something from the past. We have to be equal partners. Not 100% fund. Well, if there will be a 50-50 fund, when we will take money, and the United States will be, you know, investing. Considering the assistance to us as the investment, then we will be investing too. We may invest the profits of our companies into the fund. It will be 50-50. It would be just. Now, definitely, we can invest money from Russia's frozen assets. I think it's our money, not with partners, just exactly Ukrainian money. And this can really help. Why I'm saying that this can help? Because it may mean a fast-track investment. If it's about tossing licenses into the fund, it will mean about $60 billion a year. So from here you may understand why I wasn't ready to recognize the debt. If you would have taken 500 billion and to repay about 2 billion a year, it would take, I don't know, 250 years to repay in full. Meanwhile, money from the frozen assets are fast money. We can take 50 billion, the US can provide us 50 million of assistance, so there will be equal involvement in the fund, 100 billion in total, and we can together invest it in mineral resource extraction and development of the Ukrainian economy. This is understandable. Another story is when the United States can provide me with all the necessary weapons for us to defend. We can consider it an investment as well. Take Patriots, 1.5 billion per system, maybe 1.8 billion. The price is going up probably because of the war. Yeah, the systems are popular because they're good. So maybe we need... I talked on that with my partners, with Macron, with Starmer. He's going to go to there soon. So we need 20 more Patriot systems. 20 Patriot systems is definitely about in the range of $35 billion US. If the US will invest in us through Patriots, investing with Patriots, I will consider the investment as 35 billion of investment into us, and then we will be ready to pay the same amount, and then the fund will make 70 billion together. It sounds just to me. But we need to understand what does the America have in mind? What does it intend to consider security guarantees within this agreement? We will have to meet to discuss it, to understand. I think the meeting will need to be equitable and just. That is, before Trump meets Putin. Further on, we have RBK and then LCU over in that corner of the room. Mr. President, I'd still like you to specify, has Donald Trump or representatives of his team ever mentioned it or hinted it to you that the United States might at some point stop their assistance to Ukraine, within the meaning of intelligence data, Starlinks, and so on? Next, you always frequently mention just peace for Ukraine. What do you have in mind when you speak about the just peace? Particularly in respect of the territories currently under control of the parties, like borders before 23rd of February and so on. Okay, quite a bunch of complex questions. Let me give you answers, probably not to all of them. Now, I specifically took some numbers about Starlinks and so on. So no hints to this effect. It was shown in the media, like, we have to be ready. Yes, our relevant, competent authorities work on that. I would say that disconnecting us from Starlinks would be a wrong move, because it would cut off thousands of systems. I'm not going to give you an exact number, but it's about thousands, literally, of hospitals, kindergartens, universities, and the life brimming there. Without Starlinks, it will be a challenge for them. It will be bad for them. I think it would make for a humanitarian challenge for us, one of them. Next, we are paying for that. I thank our partners, Poland, Germany, for paying it. So yes, we pay for it. It's not free of charge, assistance. These are technologies, and we are paying monthly rental for this. So at the moment, I would say there is no immediate risk, but for the media maybe. But again, the one who's informed is prepared. Yeah. And your next question? regarding just peace and how it will resonate in terms of the territories under control of the parties to the war, borders before the February 24, 2022 particularly. Well, now we are talking about everyone's wish to force Putin to end this hot phase of the war. Quite a job it will be, and it has to go hand in hand with security guarantees for us. Now, security guarantees for us theoretically make for one story. In practical terms, if we take economic security guarantees, this involves EU membership for us. Secondly, the funding of the Ukrainian army of at least 800,000 personnel. If we are not in NATO, if we don't have such security guarantees, we don't understand that the US and some EU countries are against it. And we understand that really there is no NATO yet, but it will be on the table during talks. I'm very much sure of it. Now, the army, the peacekeeping force. Everyone's talking about this or that ceasefire option. And first of all, we always mention that security guarantees must be in place. And secondly, there should be verification of the agreement. When you have thousands of kilometers of the front line with all the activities going on there, you do remember that after Minsk agreement, after 2014, the borderline, we had it, but they were shooting across, and no one was able to 100% control the contact line with cameras, surveillance, or some, and there were those wounded and killed. So quite a challenging matter. So I'm not giving you, I cannot give you a definitive answer to that. But yes, it begs for very specific steps, starting with an understanding of the security guarantees that Europe and the United States can give us. This is point number one. LCE France, please.
Mr. President, Gwendoline Debono, LCI. Thank you for having us. European countries spent more in supporting Ukraine actually than the US. In the military help is 62 billion versus 64. Do you think if ever US doesn't want to back Ukrainian forces anymore, European support could be enough to guarantee your security? That's the first question. Second question, French President Emmanuel Macron is heading to Washington to meet Donald Trump about Ukraine. What do you expect concretely about this meeting? Thank you very much.
Emmanuel їде, ми з ним на зв'язку.
Emmanuel is going to Washington. We are in contact with him on a daily basis. Almost on a daily basis. No call today, no. And yes, he's going. And there are certain things he will have to talk through regarding security guarantees and future steps. We'll have to see what the results he will bring. We'll keep in touch with him. And yeah, he says of a meeting, all us together in Europe in the coming days, maybe weeks. Now, the next question, I think you have enough understanding of what will happen without the United States, because the United States is not just about money. Political support is very important. Sanction support is very important. Now, there are some weapon types, some weaponry that requires U.S. licensing. Europeans are providing us with Patriots, and by the way, from Germany we got more in respect of Patriot systems than from any other country, but still, the license was given by the United States of America. So I would really hate remaining us without this U.S. assistance. Now, next is financial assistance, direct budget assistance, so on. Yeah, but then no more financial assistance. We are still going, taking The weapons are coming bit by bit. Okay, let's take drones, or rather artillery. Last year we had 154 artillery pieces domestically produced. This was our record in Ukraine. 154 artillery pieces in a year was more than the aggregate production of all the NATO countries. It was a no small leap. This year we will try to do more. Now, about drones, I announced 1 million drones, then we had 2.2 million FPVs. This year we will make more of them. This helps us to survive. It won't replace the US assistance, and this has never intended to replace assistance from our partners. It's always better to have assistance. Last year, we had split 40% Europe, 30% us, 30% United States of America. It was our aggregate contribution in the defense capability of Ukraine, 40, 30, 30. This year, I think we will definitely be in 50-50 split. And yes, I think that we are going to have deficit, but we will be able to fight even despite it. As regards the war in general, I don't think that the United States of America will do everything to end the hot phase of the war this year. I consider this to be their objective, and they will be doing everything for this. Therefore, doing everything for that without assisting us, it will make for a bit another format. This is what I started with. Peace through force, but towards Russia, not in other direction. So roughly like this. Sky News from over here, please.
Thank you. I'm Deborah Haynes from Sky News. The US envoy, Mr. Witkoff, has said that he believes a Ukraine-US minerals deal is expected to be signed this week. Do you think that timeline's realistic? And if I may, obviously President Macron is going to the US, but also the British Prime Minister will be going for meetings with Donald Trump this week as well. Just how important is this moment? Do you sort of view it as the last chance for the Europeans to try to convince Donald Trump to be with Europe and Ukraine when it comes to securing a peace? Or do you worry that he's under Vladimir Putin's influence and may not be interested in that? And if you may speak in your increasingly fluent English, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What was the last? If I can speak English, what?
Просять відповідати англійською.
Oh, perfect English. Thank you so much. You too. The first of all, the visit of the president of French, Emmanuel, and the visit of Kyiv after Emmanuel this week. Yes, next week. Yeah, very important because they have to be at the table. To my mind, I mean Europe, and who will represent Europe? I can't tell you now exactly, but I think that one person will represent EU, and of course UK has to be at the table. And if we speak, for example, about security guarantees, I said to my partners, to my mind, we have to count on Turkish present. Why? Because it's very important. Who will be ready to give us real number of contingents? Real number of people, troops or ships, fleet, and etc. So we have, with all respect to everybody, I mean this. So that's why I think that we have to think about it. Yes, and also we have to think about Germany and etc. Also to think about it when we speak about our partners, because they've been the second country of the nations. Yeah, the big volume of the nations. 47, I think 47 total help, total donation. I think Germany gave something like this, 44, 47 billion. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Yeah, so United States 100, 50% of United States donation, Germany. So it's very big help. Can we push them out or somebody else? I'm not sure. So, I mean, with all respect to everybody, but we have to find the logistic steps, yeah, in this kind of table of negotiators. This is crucial for me. And of course, I mean, this a lot of guys are very deep, and Nordic, for example, and Alexander, so Finland are very deep, and of course, Emmanuel, and of course, Kyiv. So, Starmer. So, I think these people are very, very important, and all other guys are very, very important. The Dutch guys also important. They are ready now to support us. Now, yes, with some point of I don't want to go further to details of contingents during any kind of ceasefire or something like this. Yes, so that's why I said that. It's urgent visits of France and of UK to United States. And I think that they will describe real situation to our strategic partners. And then they will come back, and I think we will have meeting with all the partners of Europe, and we'll decide our next steps.
Будь ласка, далі. Телеканал «Ми Україна» і потім Wall Street Journal з того боку.
Now the TV channel We Ukraine and then the Wall Street Journal. Mr. President, thank you for this possibility. You've already mentioned that United States are willing to have the ceasefire this year, and we are hearing that Russia are not having anything against it, and the intelligence chiefs were saying that the Russians have the same position. So do you think this is the common position? Now, who out of the intelligence said that we need a pause, and for whom? Well, they were saying that Russia is willing to have a pause because, in this case, their economy would have some, deprivating moments. So, a question to you: do you think this is kind of a common position? I mean, of United States and Russia, and what's your position towards the ceasefire? Do you see this opportunity in 2025? If yes, what would need to be happened before that, and what would be what should be the front line? How this should be happening?
Дякую.
Thank you.
Дивіться, передусім,
First and foremost, United States, that's true, they are supporting this ceasefire. And I believe that in their environment, they believe that this would be an end of the war. And I'm confident that they believe that this is a big success and that Putin will not take risk and move on once again. While we believe that the security guarantees should be there, yes, we understand that it means a lot of spendings, and we want to guarantee the security for our people. Otherwise, well, there will be a question. What about our military? I mean, there are people, they're on the front lines, they're standing their ground. So if we are finishing the hot phase of the war, then these people will need to have a rest. These people will need to return to their families if this is the end of the war. If this is not the end of the war, if there is no security guarantees, then what should we do? I mean, should they stay there? Well, there wouldn't be any shots fired for a certain period of time, but they will still there waiting until for the risk of the new repeated aggression. So that's an uncertainty. Uncertainty, that's bad for the whole world. Everyone will lose out of that. We will lose. The U.S. will lose, because it can be. Can you look victorious if you have made a ceasefire and then another war started in a year? Then are you victorious at that? No. And Russians will prepare, and there will be a repeated offensive. And this is very dangerous for everyone. So whenever we're talking about the end of the whole phase of the war, we have to clearly understand how this is going to end, what security guarantees are provided to us by our partners. You shouldn't be expecting anything out of Russia. We don't need any security guarantees from Russia. We don't trust them. Let the partners believe. That's their decision. But whenever we are considering the model of security guarantees, we should be taking into account any words, any promises given by the Russian Federation. That's my position. This is different from the partners, but this is my position. We cannot base or to have the foundation of the security guarantees in the form of the word of the Putin or the promise of the Putin that we will not return. We're not going to do that. But building of security guarantees, we started talking about that. And as I've said, I'm convinced that, at least as of now, the army, which is capable, this 800,000, it doesn't mean that after the end of the whole phase of the war, it doesn't mean that the people won't be able to return home. And I gave the task already at the session of the headquarters of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, because this is the contract armed forces, so they need to think that if and when the whole phase of the war will be finished, then the military will have to kind of do some steps. The people who got mobilized as volunteers, who signed contracts, so they kind of mobilized for the war. So the military will have to be prepared for transferring to a fully contract-based armed forces. But surely you can do that only when you're ready, when the whole phase of the war is over. When the whole phase of the war is over, you start developing the agreement to put an end to the war. In any case. So that's a comprehensive steps, a lot of comprehensive steps you would need to think of, but we start with what we have as of now. If everyone willing to have the end of the whole phase of the war, we want security guarantees for Ukrainians. Now the Wall Street Journal.
Panie prezydencie, moja ukraińska pokraszuje się nie tak szybko jak...
Mr. President, my Ukrainian is getting better, not in the same pace as your English.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask you about the state of North Korea's involvement in this war. You said in January that 4,000 soldiers had been wounded or killed on the battlefield. Can you give an update on the figures? And also, the head of your military intelligence said earlier that, you know, a large proportion of the military equipment that Russia is using on the battlefield comes from North Korea. You know, how big a problem is this at the moment? And, you know, what can be done essentially to kind of counter this?
Well, the most recent information is that over 4,000 of their personnel was lost as casualties, and that there's 1,500 to 2,000 more North Korean soldiers would need to be kind of engaged to reinforce those brigades. So they might be coming. As for any others, we don't have any other additional information. They have a relationship with North Korea, pretty serious. They train with the advanced warfare tactics, and we talk that this is a big risk because now the North Koreans are well aware about the drones, about the equipment, and all of this knowledge is now taken to North Korea, and they will have their new training of the North Korean army being based on that. We've been warning about this. This is a big risk for the region. Then they continue with the supply of artillery shells from the North Korea to Russia. They continue with the supply of missiles from North Korea to Russia, and they're using the artillery and the missiles, and we have all the evidences to support that. That's it. Then I would like to pass the floor to Chile. So thank you for the support and thank you for taking such a long travel.
Juan Vallejo from Chile. Well, 3 Chileans have died in this war. One of them is Gonzalo Lira, a journalist who died last year in Kharkiv while in detention. His family and some Chilean politician claims that you ordered his killing. What can you say about that, and how do you respond to the support that President Gabriel Boric has given to you?
Хто надав наказ?
Who gave the order?
You ordered. The family, yeah. The family of Gonzalo Lira and some politicians from the left wing of my country are saying that you ordered the killing of him because he was supposedly a Russian agent. I need to ask.
Are you sure? I don't know this person, and I never knew him. And I don't know if he is intelligence or representative of Russian or not. And really, what can I say? If he is Russian, really Russian.
No, he's Chilean and American too.
Chilean, American, and intelligence and Russian intelligence.
Yeah.
Too much information for me.
I know that sounds weird. I know, but that's a really hard topic there. And about the support.
I'm not sure that one journalist from Chile, who is half of him American and other half Russian, was very dangerous for our army. So I didn't manage it. I'm not interested in such things.
And finally, how do you receive the support that Gabriel Boric, our president, is still giving to you?
Як ми отримуємо?
How do we receive it?
Ми вдячні будь-якій підтримці.
Well, how do we assess? Well, we are grateful to any support for the humanitarian support, so we count on the continuation of this support. And as long as the war continues, we are grateful to everyone. Thank you. Now, Obos. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to answer the question. The question regarding the military production and our weapons. The partners from Germany said that they are constructing the second factory, and earlier you were mentioning the drones, the missiles, and our ballistics. So can you tell us about the successes, whether it's flying or not flying? Well, Polyanica is kind of flying. The HAL or Peklo is flying. Ruta is also flying. They are successful. There's some successful hits, and I can only extend words of gratitude to our military industry and our production. And those three things, they're flying, they're successful. The ballistics is on the way. It's being prepared. Thank you. Now, Newsmax from this direction, please. Newsmax, please.
Mr. President, Zach Andrews, Newsmax, thank you. President Trump wrote on his platform, Truth Social, that you are a dictator without elections. He is the first world leader, to our knowledge, to call you a dictator. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin has stopped short. He calls you illegitimate. You responded saying that he lives in a disinformation bubble. Can you explain what a disinformation bubble is, what it looks like in more detail, and who could be behind it? What is behind it? What mechanisms create this kind of disinformation? And to follow, sir, if within the last week of these exchanges, have you seen any polling of Ukrainians' public opinion about your leadership as president? Can you tell us how your support level is currently in Ukraine?
Дякую.
Thank you.
Якщо не звертати увагу на
If not to point to the previous week rhetorics of the president towards me, my characteristics. Now, as for the figures, I'm always very pragmatic and clear and solid about this. Otherwise, all of this disinformation that might be coming from any source, otherwise that might have an impact either inside of United States or inside Europe or inside of Ukraine. That's why, like 4% of the Ukrainians supporting me, that's one of the signals that was spread by the Russians. That's why I was saying that I believe that this is a disinformation attack. I wasn't telling that with relation to President Trump. I'm just saying that he might have certain sources, and I think we need to take a look at the priorities. And I think one of the priority would be having direct dialogue with me to understand what is happening. There is also the official and social platforms for doing the polls, for doing the social surveys that everyone is trusting, and I would point the attention to them, because 4% and the actual 65% of support that I have now, this is the number of people trusting me as the president of Ukraine. I think that's a significant difference. I mean, 4% and 65%. And I think that this is not a mistake. This is the information, the disinformation, which has an influence. So if our side won't be responding to that, then there will be other information coming in. An example, this 500 billion of US dollars of Ukraine to the United States. These are also very dangerous numbers, because at a certain point of time, it could be like some sort of documents, and you might be told that you are keeping silent, you are not showing the documents, you're not showing the financial documents or structures. And at a certain point of time, you can hear that, okay, we're not willing to help you anymore because we gave you 500 billions and you would need to return that, otherwise there would be no support. So this 4%, this 500 billion, the dictator, the elections, all of that are dangerous steps to weaken Ukraine, the social opinion inside Ukraine and outside of Ukraine among our partners, because our foreign partners, they're looking at the society, whether the society supports Ukraine or not. If the social survey shows that Europeans and the Americans are supporting Ukraine, then the leaders of those countries are supporting Ukraine. If the leaders are starting to describe something with their own words, and if they're starting to use the numbers, the proper numbers, then this will have an impact on the social opinion, of the citizens. So I'm not responding to the words coming from the President of Ukraine. I'm responding to that signal coming from the United States, and I thought it was dangerous. That's why I believe that any direct talks, we have a possibility, we can talk, we can meet. I believe we need to have meeting. For example, there are many talks of the Hungarian leader saying that Ukraine doesn't need the NATO. There's signals coming from the Hungarian leader. I don't want to go to personalities, but I want to detail this example till the very end. But I know there's people from that Hungarian leader, and they have contacts with people around President Trump, and they keep raising the question, saying that when the war has started because there was an agreement during the disbandment of the Soviet Union about the the lack of further extension of NATO towards the Eastern Europe. And that was one of the reasons for Putin to attack Ukraine, that Ukraine could be admitted to NATO, and NATO is the faulty party at this point. Now, that is dangerous. Why? First and foremost, this is not true. Because truly, the Soviet Union were agreeing with the United States that there will be no deployments of NATO, and NATO won't extend and would have new members from the Eastern Europe, and that was before our independence, before the independence of Russia. Then I have a question. Then how a Hungary that received a membership of NATO in 1999 and was in the list of those countries that NATO shouldn't be extending to, then how the leader of Hungary, why the leader of Hungary is not afraid of raising this question? Because should you roll it back, then if you will take a look at the list of the countries that according to Putin should be not in NATO, then why is there the Czech Republic, the Bulgaria, the Romania, the Hungary, while the Baltic countries, the Slovak, public also big hello to Fico and Orban. Aren't we talking about, is there any risk about telling about this? Isn't that the risk for their societies and their countries? Now, isn't that the risk that all of those countries who joined NATO after certain arrangements, well, the so-called arrangements of the Soviet Union and the United States, that all of them, well, if Ukraine won't be able to withstand, then all of them could be under attack or under the presence of Russian armed forces on their own territory. That's why I was saying that all of this disinformation, we can, spend hours about that. And I gave you a detailed example with NATO, and I believe that it's a dangerous example. And I truly want President Trump to talk to me with those who are at a table and not walking around this table.
Будь ласка, Ліга.нет.
Liga.net, please. Mr. President, recent developments attest to Russia's intentions to get closer with the U.S., as well as that U.S. will certainly reduce our assistance to us. Meanwhile, China is gradually drifting away from Russia. May we consider China as a backup option in these conditions? Thank you for your question. I'm used to fighting until the end of it. I'm rather reluctant to talking about Plan B, at least loudly. We have to do everything not to lose the U.S. Before the war, our trade with China was exceptionally big. It was okay. We earned money each, and it was higher than our turnover with Europe. Then we had sea blockade, and the rest is history, as they say. Yes, we can have economic relationship with China, and I do think that China, and during our summit and peace formula negotiations, we have always maintained that, particularly when matters pertinent to territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine are discussed, China can be engaged. And if they are able to help us in this, in their relations with partners, maybe in terms of forcing Russia to recognize the territorial integrity, why not? We may not just, push away partners, but there are no serious signals from China about them being ready for something. Full stop here. Well, frankly speaking, we're also talking with Europe. And Europe's most serious countries are already considering the expanding of their assistance in such case. A question from this region, exactly, Phoenix TV from Hong Kong, from what I understand, and then NHK, Japan.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. I am Chen Ying from Phoenix TV, Hong Kong, China. We have observed that the Ukrainian government is making various attempts to achieve the peace, but it is not yet successful. But we're hearing a lot of public voice in the Ukrainian society for peace. Under this kind of circumstances, what does Ukraine hope for the China role in this Ukraine's cessation of war, peace restoration, and future reconstruction? Thank you.
Відновлювати Україну.
To recover and restore.
About renovation of Ukraine. It's a big volume of money. It will be after the war. But to renovate Ukraine, it's mean to give security guarantees to Ukraine. That will be the priority. The priority will be Ukrainian business and the business of all the countries who will give us security guarantees. And I think that's about just in relations with all the partners. They will give us security guarantees, and we will give their businesses possibility to renovate Ukraine and have money on it. What about China? So, first of all, I think that China has big interests in Europe, in EU, in relations for your economy. I think so. And I think so that in this case, China can help us with any possibilities to stop Putin and with respect of our territorial integrity, to help us, especially in this point. We don't need weapon and etc. We never asked China about weapon because we know answer. But I think that is important. So if China can help us in it, if they really have interest to have a role in this, we are ready to speak about it. Thank you.
Так, будь ласка, NHK, Японія.
And NHK Japan, please.
Thank you, President. I'm Ryoji Ito from the NHK, Japanese Public TV. My question is, what do you expect to Japan for the support of Ukraine, especially in diplomatic field? Japan is a member of G7 and has a strong alliance with the United States. So what kind of diplomatic role do you expect to Japan to maintain the international order and international law, international rule and the democracy?
Дякую дуже. Японія дуже хороший наш партнер.
We thank you. Yeah, Japan is our very good partner, and we deeply respect Japan. You helped us a lot. Japan is presented in Ukraine. It will be presented in Ukraine. Japan gave one of its biggest non-lethal support package, humanitarian, financial. We've built some serious relationships. We had a conference on recovery of Ukraine in Japan. We envision a lot of things to be done together with Japanese colleagues. We're thankful to you for that. I'm very much sure that in future negotiations, Japan will play one of the big roles. As I already have said today, about 15 billion were provided to us by your Japanese partners, and we are deeply thankful for that. Yes, you're in the G7, and the new Prime Minister of Japan will be here online with us today. We'll be glad to talk to him. Next, Громадське радіо.
Можливо. Але спочатку громадське.
Українська правда. Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question towards potential stopping of U.S. assistance. You mentioned Patriots. What if U.S. refuses from giving us Patriots? Will it mean that our cities will be laid bare? How critical the aftermath might be for the front line if the U.S. stops weapon supply? And the focus may a bit shifted, but this is a matter of great importance and concern for the military. The army is exhausted. Is it possible to have clear-cut service times at this point of time? Because the people really are surprised at the level of benefits available to 1824 contract signatories. Well, there are certain things that sort of fell out of tune regarding this 1824 contract system. It concerns young people who volunteered to go to the front line. Before this law emerged, I ordered to resolve the matter. These people will be able to choose brigades with correct training procedures and so on. Not to say that there are no good brigades. We've pre-agreed it with the military that there will be a test run for 2 months, and then other brigades besides the one initially earmarked will be made available. I'm listening to what Sirsky, Drapati, other commanders have to say. So we will resolve that matter. I do understand they are yet to decide on normal personnel rotations, because yes, people are exhausted. I can only thank them to tell that both the military and the chief of staffs will have to do everything to support them, to help them, to provide them with more rotations, vacation time, to finalize these 1824 arrangements. Like any pilot, I would hate calling it experiment, but as a pilot meant to facilitate the transfer towards contractual army, we need to understand how it will unfold and what the consequences will be. It is a serious move. Because of that, they are very careful treading this. I would really don't like it to debilitate the front line. And regarding Patriots, by the way, not everything has entered our countries since relevant decision was made at NATO Washington summit. This is how things go. It's not about new system, it's about the system we had agreed upon back in July last year. We're still waiting for them. So yeah, we are sorting this out. We are sorting out the aerial defense matters. Yes, and frankly speaking, we are working to build something similar in Ukraine. But what will be the critical consequences of stopping the US assistance? Well, just imagine 20% less assistance available. You can conclude yourself. This is why I say that we do count on it not to be interrupted. And secondly, we are discussing a new model to have increased shipments from Europe. And on a separate note, a separate funding available from Europe to support the manufacturing here. We are also in negotiations with various representatives of non-European countries in respect of buying some serious weapon packages, and I think some good results are to report. Once more regarding this agreement with the US, how many years it will be intended for? How many years will be needed to dig 500 billion euro worth of minerals? Will it take eons? And second question, are you going to offer some similar agreement to other countries? Well, first of all, we do not recognize the 500 billion debt. European countries also provided money to us, and we want to be co-owners of any given fund. So, yes, we do not recognize the debt. It won't be like that. The last version of the agreement, Andrei brought it here, there is no mention of 500 billion, and we are glad that our U.S. partners at the moment have no this question of 500 billion, so nothing to discuss regarding that.
Будь ласка, далі CNN, і хотілося б якісь
CNN next,
іспанські
and
медіа.
then we would like to hear from some Spanish media.
Добре, потім після
El País, yeah, yes, after CNN, please.
President, it's a week in your relations with Washington. Do you think you can mend your relationship with President Trump? And secondly, has it been spelt out to you what happens if you do not sign up to this rare earth minerals deal in terms of US aid and whether it continues?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Repeat, please, your question, because translation was a little bit...
You've had a long week in relations with Washington. Do you think you can mend your relationship with President Trump? And secondly, have the American side spelt out to you what happens if you don't come to an agreement over this rare earth minerals deal in terms of what it means for US aid?
As I said, we want successful agreement. And if we will understand each other with partners, I hope that it will be. We will sign the first agreement or memo on which base I will prepare other documents. So I hope that it will not have influence on other steps of the United States, and they will not cancel or stop or freeze any support, especially military support, to Ukraine. That's crucial for us.
The President?
My relationship with President Trump? It never was in such best way.
Can you improve it? Can you mend it, you think?
No, I think we have, our countries, first of all, our countries have strategic relationship and we are partners. And I think it's not in our rights, like presidents, to lose partnership between our countries. And that's why, for me, it's very important support of the president and support of Senate, Congress, of your two parties. But, first of all, support of your people. And I count on it very much, and I'm thankful that we have it.
Далі, будь ласка, El País і 24 канал.
Next El País and 24th channel.
Пане президент, перепрошую, тому що я не розмовляю дуже добре українською мовою.
Sorry, Mr. President, I don't have a good comment of Ukrainian.
Ви думаєте, що можливу угоду з Російською Федерацією?
What do you think about the potential future agreement with the Russian Federation? Will it have to be ratified by the parliament, by the Verkhovna Rada, or during a referendum? If at some point you mean when we reach an agreement with Russia? This is a very difficult question. The question is where the partners will be at this time. It would be nice to see all of them with us, and it would be very nice to see that partners are on our side, not mediators. Next, the question is about the agreement itself, whether it will be just for us, because this is what we want, this is how it has to be, and based on the details of the agreement, we'll have to think, because it can turn various ways. We'll have to see. It's quite a challenging question, indeed. 24th channel. At any rate, all the changes, even with money like that, the financial ones, need to be ratified in the parliament. I think we need to be based on the Ukrainian legislation, and we will see into it. Mr. President, you started by saying you're ready to leave the President's office if it will bring peace to Ukraine. It wasn't the thing I started with. It was the start of it. You also said that you could exchange your office for NATO. Meanwhile, we have one more unit to exchange. Kursk Oblast. So, okay, one more on top of my office. Yeah, this is what we would suggest as an exchange thing, unlike your presidency, but they seem to be reluctant to get it back. So if they don't want to have it back, what will we have to do? Will we have to make it a part of Ukraine? No. We are interested in our own Ukrainian territories, and whatever the case, Kursk Oblast will provide us with the possibility of exchanging it for our Ukrainian territories. When we come to matters of territorial integrity, specific steps, I think it will help us.
Будь ласка, з цього боку Джимхурієт.
And Jumhuriyet from here, Sai, right? Mr. President, two questions to you. First, there are different ideas between the U.S. leaders and that of Ukraine. The U.S. administration currently ignores and violates the principle of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. They launched negotiations with Russia, and the second round of these negotiations is to be expected soon. What do you think? Will it be possible for you to convince Trump to have it in such a format when the U.S., you, Russia, and Europe will be present? And second question. Will it be a sort of a Yalta agreement? And the second question is, during your visit to Turkey recently, you had talks with Erdogan. What is your assessment of the role and function of Turkey? What is your take of Turkey's proposal to become a mediator in negotiations? The United States have always been in talks with Russia throughout this war. It was always true. It has been true. It just wasn't for the public eye. But now it's very public and very serious, and because of that, much more dangerous. One thing is to talk via your intelligence services. Another thing is to have your official representatives doing that. But again, this is not news for us. I frankly said that we would really like it as a priority for the U.S. to first talk to us, then to Russia. But they have an approach of their own. They have their own agenda of bilateral matters. They can discuss whatever they want in their relations. This is their right. But it is not possible to decide anything about Ukraine without us. We will not recognize any such agreements, regardless of format. Because of that, I said that it is our table, and we are sitting at the table, and I am sure of it. Yes, we are enemies with Russia, and we are the parties of the war, though they are aggressor party, and we will be at the table, and Europe will be there because the war rages on this continent, and after us, the most danger it will bring to Europe. You know that. Whether on land, in the Black Sea, in border regions, the border regions with Ukraine, the countries that will be the first to feel it. And yeah, I said Europe and the U.S. And the U.S. as surely as our strategic partner. And Turkey, I'm sure of the time, format, and role. But Erdogan does know that we consider him among important security guarantors for us. I mentioned that in my talk with President Erdogan. And I think there are just two armies in Europe now. The two biggest one in Europe, the Ukrainian one of 800,000 and the Turkish one. There are many countries that have helped us a lot, but we have to be very clear, to state it clearly, as to who is able to provide those security guarantees in Europe in terms of peacekeeping corps. Okay? Суспільне, please.
Підведіться, щоб вас побачили.
Could you please raise Darina Kolomits from Suspilna? Just recently you have partially answered my question with regards to the negotiations taking place in between the United States and Russia. Indeed, earlier Trump's administration was saying that no terms and conditions will be imposed on us, but based on the recent statements, we can see that truly there could be an agreement signed in between of them, and then this agreement might be tried to be imposed on us. So what could be the guarantees for us for this not to happen? And we're not going to do that because, well, you said we're not going to do that, but are there any guarantees for that not to happen? And with regards to your meeting with Trump, you said you would like this to happen before the meeting with Putin. You said this today and earlier. Do you think, is this just at a level of desires, or there may be any agreements in between of that? I have a very difficult question. You know, the construct, the wording, the philosophy of this question. So let me try to kind of deconstruct that, if I understood you correctly. You're saying that if something's going to be imposed upon us, that we will not be recognizing that. But you're saying, but this is something that you're saying, and you're talking about me, and what are the guarantees for us? If I'm telling you that we are not going to recognize that's one of these important guarantees, that we shall not be recognizing something that is bad for Ukraine. I'm not going to sign what's bad for Ukraine. So, or did I get you wrong in terms of your question? What about the meeting with Trump? Any agreements, any arrangements? Are there any previous agreements or arrangements, or it's just you're willing to have a meeting with him before the meeting with Putin? I believe it's the right thing in order not to shift the accents and priorities, like who is who, to whom. I believe that it will be kind of a mistake for Ukrainian society, because there will be a disbelief to the United States if he would be meeting with President Putin first. And I think that would be wrongful or bad for the U.S. society, because they won't understand what is happening. And as long as our nations are helping one another, are friendly to one another, the same would go for the leaders of those countries. And that should be the case. That is the right way. So I believe that's a big threat. That's going to be a big and bad signal for the Europeans. But it doesn't mean that we, together with you, I mean, we can force any leader. No, we have to tell about the importance of preserving those relationships. That's why a meeting with the President Trump, I believe it may happen, but I am unable to tell you when. You know, there's one great leader. I'm not going to give you the last name. Leader of one country, and he kept telling me, like, I very much invite you to come to my country, and I tell him, yes, I really want to come. And like the situation continues for 3 years. He's not giving the date, and I'm not coming. But every time we have a meeting, and he kept asking, you know, why aren't you visiting my country? And I'm saying, look, I'm ready. It's difficult for me today, yeah, but he understands whenever you have a window in your schedule, like, just come whenever you can. And I'm saying, okay, but when? When you'll have a window, of opportunity in your schedule. The only benefit, the only plus is that recently he sent a letter to me, and there's the date. So that's the only benefit. The time will come, the moment will come. We'll have a meeting with President Trump, and it's impossible without that. It's impossible to finish the war without one party, without Ukraine. It's impossible. And if the United States, I don't really believe in that, if they will agree with Russia about us, without us, then this agreement won't have any success if we will not kind of confirm the terms of this agreement. Good. Now, the news hour from Netherlands, please.
Mr. President, Gert-Jan Dennekamp, Dutch television. Hello. You were going to say something on Dutch support this afternoon. You started the sentence, but you didn't finish it. Can you elaborate what the Dutch have promised? And the second thing is the biggest party in the Netherlands is critical towards support for Ukraine. A minister of this party said that you're not an elected president. I think that's a trend in more countries like America, but also wider in Europe. Do you notice that in your contact with leaders? And does that mean you have to change your tone also and your approach towards these leaders and these countries?
Well, usually I always change the tone, and I'm kind of openly fighting against that, because I believe that this is one of the formats how you can stop this or that wave, and I believe there's a range of waves that we've managed to stop by not keeping silent. You've seen the public part, but I could have like 15 or 20 conversations online, could have meetings offline. I could do many things in order to stop very risky, very kind of rightward directions or statements. And that's what I was mentioning, that the wrong information that could be coming from the partners or from the United States would be pushing the European leaders, particularly those right-wing parties that have such an attitude to this national isolation, first of all, like we are the first, and what's happening abroad, this is not something that, it's important to us. But the war, it doesn't see the borders, not everyone understands that, so we're fighting against that. We're working with the Prime Ministers of Netherlands. We are in a very good relationship. There is this support. I talked to the Prime Minister, I think yesterday, it was Saturday, so I talked to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister supports us. We'll be working to support the assistance coming to Ukraine, plus there's a certain question regarding F-16, so we're working. The final question is we need to finish the Ukraine forum, please, in the first row here. Thank you for such a possibility. Mr. President, recently, on the political agenda, the elections, the issue of elections has become very topical, even though the legislation is still the same and the martial law is not over. It's hot on the front line. So do we have a pressure from the Western partners? So are they pressing on you with regards to the elections? What could be the conditions for the elections? The issue of elections was raised by the Russians, and there is a lot of information because of that. The issue of elections came up in the United States, and there's no secrets about this. And the partners never raised this issue. So that is the wave. I think that this is a serious one. I would consider that one of those dangerous or risky steps to a certain format over pressure being imposed on Ukraine, and preparing certain documents that would be good for someone, but not us. So we need to stand on our ground. We need to stay strong and to fight for our independence, because that would be the question to be raised. And I believe this is a dangerous wave. That's why I was harsh, maybe too harsh, even too harsh in my kind of attitude to that. Stopping this wave, I'm not doing that by myself alone, but publicly understand what is happening. As for the elections, look, if we would be having the elections right now, then for us it would be clear from the state of security that would be story number one, to have a democratic election so that they would be recognized later on. How the people will be voting during the war, how they would be voting, how the people on the front line would be able to vote. I don't understand how that could be done. I'm not even telling that that's contrary to the Ukrainian legislation, contrary to the constitution of Ukraine, but what's important, the security, how the soldiers would be able to vote. Well, there would be no options for that. Like today, 267 drones were used today to attack us. Now, imagine, like 267. Well, Russians are very persistent. And you see that when the people from the United States are saying that Russians are willing to end this war. So any person willing to end the war, will that be launching 267 drones? How do we able to organize the voting in Sumy region? Like, that's a question. Or how can we do that in Kharkiv region? What's going to happen to Kupiansk? I mean, we evacuate people from there. How we can do that? So it's going to be the elections, or what would be the option for the people abroad? How do we prepare the infrastructure? What about the observers? Will the observers arrive to the front line? How many of them? I mean, how many observers would be arriving to Kramatorsk or to Sumy region or to Kyiv region? How about Pokrovsk? Any volunteers among the observers to come to Pokrovsk? Like, or we would say that, there's a certain amount of kilometers from the front line where we can have the elections. So it's going to be, they're there, and we are a small piece of the land, like, out of there. But that's wrong. I mean, how would you recognize the elections where half of the population won't be able to vote? Because that would be the case. I mean, they won't be able to do that. People, forget when they're raising the question, like, what do we do with the temporarily occupied territories? Now, what the people are going to do there, how they're going to vote. Okay, we cannot take back our territories, but how the people are going to travel there, amidst the combat operations, who's going to let them go? Or we're willing to tell them, like, something. In this case, Russians will be controlling the elections on the temporarily occupied territories. There are so many questions like that. In addition to the fact that this is contrary to the law and to the legislation. Let's cancel the martial law period? I mean, we're saying that there's some understandable challenges, there's problem with rotation. So what if we cancel the martial law period? So let's be honest. Many people will return back home? Where are they going to vote? With what flag? If all of the armed forces will go back, or the majority of them will go back. I mean, all of this story around the information about the messages, which is coming from somewhere, I mean, don't we understand all of those challenges, all those risks? And unfortunately, our partners are being told was some nonsense. I believe this is all disinformation. Like, I don't believe that President Trump thinks like that by himself. I don't really want to believe that. It's important because these are our strategic partners. That's why I told the word disinformation. A question about the military. Let's have the very final question, and we'll finish with that. Marina Shashkova, The Telegraph. Mr. President, recently 2 generals were detained and a colonel, and they're saying that they're negligible, and because of that, part of the territory of Kharkiv was lost. And you were positive about those detentions, but the Defense Committee of the Parliament mentioned that there's this combat immunity and that the service personnel are immune to criminal responsibility during the martial law. So do you think this situation will result in many prosecutions of the military or military commanders for the decisions taken during the combat? And do you think that would result in the loss of trust in between of the authorities and the military? There is no loss of trust. It wasn't about the territory. Well, not only about the territory. When there's this story of fighting for Ukrainian territories, a lot of people are dying. So when we're saying about the negligence, I mean, is that a matter of kilometers? Is that important? But there were people dying there. So there is a serious matter behind it. Let the law enforcement agencies dealing with that. I have much respect to the senior officers, but the soldiers are dying. The soldiers say the commanding officers would need to be responsible. Someone has to be responsible. I don't know about the conclusions. Let the investigation take place, but saying that we have a war and then we keep our eyes shut on everything. That's why I told, let the people kind of investigate that. But the soldiers in trenches, and I had a question in the middle of the investigation, and we had the headquarters session. So I had a question to all the supreme commanders, supreme leadership, like these people over there, were they on the front line with those people, in the soldiers and the trenches? No. Now, what could be the claims to those people that they kind of retreated or something else happened? And I have claims that many of them died on those positions. Should we kind of investigate that or kind of dwell into that? I believe we should. Thank you. Thank you. That is the end of the press conference. Thank you.